Rome, 82 AD. The scorching sun beat down on the marble stands, where 50,000 spectators, like a single colossal beast, let out a guttural roar. In the very heart of the arena, doors slowly creaked open like the gates of the underworld, unleashing an unearthly shriek. The crowd's gaze, greedy and excited, flared, and the condemned man shuddered with terror. What was about to unfold surpassed the wildest imagination. The Colosseum, that majestic architectural marvel which now draws millions of tourists, was in reality the grandest and most sophisticated theater of horror ever constructed. More than mere battles took place here. Power was forged with blood and cruelty. Incredibly, it's a fact. There were animals specially trained not only to kill but also to commit acts of violence against people during ritual performances dedicated to the gods. A man was forced to play the role of Prometheus, while a huge, merciless eagle literally pecked out his liver. There was also such a barbaric execution involving elephants that even the hardened Roman public, for the first time, shuddered with pity for these mighty creatures. Today, the focus is not on gladiatorial prowess, but on the darkest and most repulsive aspects of the Colosseum, games that crossed all moral boundaries, and the tragic fates of men, women, and children sacrificed for cruel amusement. To truly understand the greatness and downfall of Rome, one must delve into the essence of its existence. The Roman Empire relied not solely on the might of its legions and the strictness of its laws, but on something far more fundamental: captivating spectacles. These displays, where the populace came face to face with death, subdued it, and applauded it, were the cornerstone of their power. Roman emperors were well aware that a well-fed and entertained populace was not prone to rebellion. Thus arose the Colosseum, an ingenious structure designed to distract the plebeians, maintain their subservience, and fuel their bloodlust. However, its role was not limited to mere entertainment. It was a powerful propaganda machine. Every execution, every gladiatorial combat, every dying scream served as a clear signal: Rome was the master of the world. Rome dictated life and death. Unlike the Hellenes, who celebrated athletic prowess, or the Celts, who extolled the heroic deeds of their champions, the Romans elevated violence to a state art form. In their worldview, the suffering of others was not a tragedy, but an integral part of the world order. The crueler and bloodier the spectacle, the more powerful the empire seemed. Perhaps this sounds like an exaggeration, but it's worth pondering. What brings pleasure to modern humanity? How much suffering of others do we consume, sometimes without even realizing it? It's not inconceivable that the spirit of the Colosseum lives on, manifesting in contemporary forms of entertainment and media. The Colosseum arena witnessed not only human tragedies, but also the demise of countless wild animals, often becoming the main protagonists of these cruel performances. Behind every creature that appeared on the blood-soaked sand stood the unseen figure of the bestiarius, a man whose craft was to transform living beings into instruments of death. These individuals skillfully provoked, tormented, and trained the beasts, driving them to a state of uncontrollable fury. Among them, individuals stood out whose cruelty and inventiveness were astonishing. Carpophorus, a slave whose name became legendary over time, was one such master. Legends claim he could single-handedly, without weapons, dispatch a wild boar, a bear, a leopard, and a lion in a single day. But his talents extended beyond mere slaughter. Carpophorus learned to bend animals to his will, giving them unthinkable commands. It was rumored he trained a rhinoceros to fight alongside him, creating an army of beast gladiators. Reaching the extremes of depravity, he forced some animals to perform sexual acts with humans, transforming these into ritual worship of the god Jupiter. The more repulsive the act, the louder the public's applause. And Carpophorus was not the only one of his kind. Eagles trained to peck out victims' entrails, lions obeying commands like loyal hounds, panthers performing a sinister dance before pouncing on their prey. All were part of the Colosseum's nightmarish world. It was a place where, instead of a zoo, a true hell reigned, disguised as a spectacle. A place where, with every animal roar, the line between civilization and barbarism blurred, revealing the darker side of human nature. The Roman Empire, renowned for its conquests and grandeur, was not limited to the simple destruction of its enemies. It elevated the theatrical staging of murders to a high art form. The Colosseum, a majestic amphitheater, became a giant stage where the darkest myths and legends were played out. But unlike theatrical productions, everything here was real. Blood flowed freely, and human bodies served as props. Did they crave to see Prometheus, eternally chained to a rock, his liver tormented by a hungry eagle? For the Romans, this was no problem. A condemned criminal was used as the living embodiment of the Titan, while a specially trained bird played the role of a ruthless executioner. Did they dream of witnessing Hercules' feats, fighting giants? That too was possible. It was enough to sew together the mutilated bodies of soldiers, deprived of their limbs, and release Emperor Commodus into the arena, for him to dispatch these unfortunates one by one. In the pursuit of admiration and universal euphoria, there were no bounds. This was not about religious conviction or artistic expression, but a demonstration of absolute power. The emperor sought to appear before the people as a living deity, proving that myths were not mere tales, but a reality embodied in the suffering and pain of mere mortals. And the public, blinded by the empire's grandeur, applauded not out of ignorance, but a profound belief that this was the natural order. Every cruel scene enacted in the arena reinforced the idea that Rome was the center of the universe, and all other peoples were merely expendable material, puppets in the hands of an omnipotent ruler. To what extent can human fanaticism go when morbid fantasies and violence merge into one? In the Colosseum, there was no place for fiction, only ritualized cruelty, elevated to a cult. In the majestic Colosseum, a symbol of Rome's imperial might, not every spectator grasped the true purpose of their presence, and not all participants in this spectacle were human. The Roman Empire, which extended its power over vast territories, brought exotic animals from the remotest corners of the known world, mighty elephants from Africa, formidable Atlas lions, ferocious bears from the Balkans, as well as rhinos, tigers, and even exotic giraffes. These animals were not just exotic curiosities. They served as instruments of death, yet simultaneously were silent victims of imperial ambitions. Elephants, for instance, were subjected to brutal training to perform acrobatic displays, bow before the emperor, and dance to the sound of fanfares. However, beyond entertaining the public, they were used for monstrous executions. They trampled living condemned prisoners, causing roars of laughter from the crowd. On one occasion, 18 elephants, unable to tolerate the abuse, refused to obey. They broke through the enclosures and attempted to escape. The spectators, gripped by panic, screamed in terror. For the first time, a triumphant spectacle descended into chaos. People begged for mercy for the plight of the animals. That day, the elephants were killed. And Rome learned a vital lesson. The public was capable of empathy when it saw sentience and suffering in the eyes of a beast. Lions, in contrast, inspired both fear and awe. The Barbary lion, a now almost extinct African subspecies, averaged 3 meters in length and weighed approximately 200 kilograms. One such formidable beast took the lives of over 200 people in the Colosseum arena. Julius Caesar staged mass hunts involving 400 lions to demonstrate his unlimited power. Commodus, renowned for his cruelty, executed lions with his bare hands, seeing them only as living trophies. But with every fearsome roar, every desperate attempt to escape, every gaze filled with terror, These animals reminded the Roman people that even at the peak of imperial might, there are creatures that cannot be broken or truly tamed. The Colosseum, a witness to the grandeur and brutality of ancient Rome, saw many deaths and indignities. However, not all victims of the arena were equal before its ruthless audience. The Romans drew a clear distinction between the death of a gladiator, fallen in fair combat, and the demise of those contemptuously referred to as damnatio ad bestias, slaves, criminals, disenfranchised foreigners, and Christians. These people, in the Romans' view, deserved neither an honorable weapon nor mercy. Their lot was a shameful death, intended to delight the eyes of thousands of spectators, craving blood and violence. Thus began the barbaric execution by wild beasts, becoming one of the darkest and most unforgettable spectacles of the era. Imagine a gruesome scene. On the scorching arena, beneath the blazing sun, stands a structure resembling a children's swing. Naked, trembling condemned individuals are chained to it. As one soars upwards, the other descends towards inevitable demise. At this moment, hungry predators erupt from hidden hatches: lions, bears, enraged wild boars. The prisoners despairingly try to evade the deathly claws and fangs, but they know their fate is sealed. Sooner or later, the swing will lower them into the jaws of death. This was not merely a punishment, but a sophisticated ritual, a dance of suffering designed to entertain the crowd and impart a cruel lesson. You are nothing. Your pain is just part of a grand spectacle. And beneath the deafening applause and malicious laughter, with each victim, the last vestiges of humanity were erased, turning people into powerless puppets in the hands of a merciless fate. The gates of despair welcomed visitors with a spectrum of emotions. Some entered, filling the space with uncontrollable weeping, while others maintained a heavy silence. Yet, there were also those who, despite everything, resolved never to cross that fateful threshold. In this place, where the human spirit was eroded daily, there still remained individuals prepared to use their last resort, the right to choose the moment and manner of their death. Seneca, the eminent philosopher, recounts the story of a German captive who, to avoid the spectacle the Romans had planned for his body, took a desperate measure. He swallowed a piece of cloth, torn from a lavatory implement, and suffocated. Another, in a cart bound for the arena, found his death by thrusting his head between the spokes of a wheel, instantly preferring the horrifying crunch of breaking bones to the deafening roar of the crowd. But the most striking example is the story of 29 Saxon captives. Locked up on the eve of their execution, they made a collective decision to take each other's lives, one by one, until only one remained. The fate of the last Saxon remains a mystery. Only one thing is known: he never appeared on the blood-soaked arena. These acts cannot be simply termed suicides. They were acts of defiance. A silent yet potent testament that even in the face of all-consuming power, the human spirit can rise up and utter a firm "Enough!" And although these deaths remained unwitnessed, their decisions resonate to this day as desperate pleas for dignity in a silence which can often be far crueler than death itself. The Colosseum, a majestic edifice built as a symbol of Rome's might, paradoxically became the arena where its vulnerability was laid bare. For decades, Roman emperors used this arena to suppress the burgeoning power of Christianity, a faith whose adherents refused to worship the emperor and did not fear death. Christians, stripped of their clothing and shackled, were thrown defenseless into the arena. However, instead of cries of despair, they offered prayers, sang hymns, and forgave their tormentors, who threw them to be torn apart by wild animals. The spectacle, intended to instill terror, began to elicit a completely different reaction: admiration. Spectators, accustomed to gruesome spectacles, witnessed something more profound: an unwavering faith that even the claws of lions could not break. public execution transformed into a powerful spiritual testament. Gradually, the Romans began to question who held true power, the one who takes life, or the one who dies with forgiveness on their lips. The blood of martyrs not only failed to quash Christianity, but fueled its dissemination. Over time, this spiritual fire eroded the very foundations of the empire. When the Colosseum lost its role as a tool for controlling the populace, Rome was compelled to seek new methods of governance, and the Rome of old was forever consigned to the past. Every great civilization harbors pages within its annals that it would prefer to forever consign to oblivion. For the Roman Empire, the Colosseum became such a sinister stain, a monumental edifice whose external beauty concealed a terrifying reality: the transformation of death into a captivating spectacle. Modern tourists visiting the Colosseum often marvel at its architectural grandeur, capturing it in photographs as a historical landmark. However, few consider that every stone of this amphitheater is steeped in cries of pain and despair, in lives extinguished for the amusement of a crowd that jubilantly watched the demise of both humans and animals. The Colosseum was not merely a venue for gladiatorial contests and animal hunts. It was a powerful political instrument, a symbol of absolute power, and a reflection of a societal mentality that indifferently observed the suffering of others. And although time has erased the bloody traces from the arena and silenced the dying screams, the Colosseum's legacy endures in the modern world. In the digital age, violence has become a commodity, disseminated at lightning speed through the screens of our devices. We have replaced marble stands with virtual spaces, but still remain spectators, often tacitly condoning cruelty. The question arises: has humanity truly evolved, or have we merely learned to mask our Colosseums under the guise of modern entertainment and hollow promises? History is not merely a collection of facts to be admired from a distance. It is a mirror into which we must gaze to learn lessons from the past. Ignoring the darker chapters of history, we risk repeating them, often unwittingly. The Colosseum is not merely ruins in the heart of Rome. It is a sinister reminder of humanity's capabilities when it ceases to value life and compassion. It is crucial to remember that not everything buried in the past has truly vanished. The shadow of the Colosseum still looms over us, reminding us of the imperative to remain vigilant and prevent the recurrence of past tragedies.